Aaron Tuttle here. It's storm season in Oklahoma, and with that comes torrential rain, high winds, and hail. To protect your home and your family from these threats, the one roofing company you should trust is Ferguson Roof Systems. They've been providing the best in roofing services for nearly half a century. Ferguson is Oklahoma's full-service roofing company, certified with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and a 5-star rating on Google. And with Ferguson now offering Class 4 impact-resistant shingles, now is the time to trust them with your home's roof. Get started today at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Sometimes you gotta do things twice. Sometimes it work out the first time. You can't just quit. You gotta keep going, right? So obviously I had a little technical difficulty there. Let me get this thing finished setting up on my end. Thanks for joining me. It's just about noon, just a few minutes before noon here on our Thursday. So we're going to do a Lunchtime Live to talk about the weather forecast here for the remainder of today to see if severe weather is still in our window. And then we'll talk about also for Friday and Saturday. So thanks for joining me. Last night we looked at some data. We had, what's that beeping noise? Jody, I think you got something here beeping. So last night we talked about the Storm Prediction Center's outlook over western Oklahoma and how that would not verify. They were going to have to remove that. And sure enough, they did. We'll show you that update here in a minute, and then also include the area of southern and central Oklahoma for overnight stuff. So we'll see what the data shows, but right now everything's been on track as far as the forecast goes, at least on this end of things. I don't know what other people are saying. I don't care. I don't have the time. But I can tell you what I've been saying. It looks like everything's still looking the same, and we'll detail the newest data to see if anything has changed here for your Lunchtime Live, and then we'll let you go, turn you loose for the rest of the day. So I hope you're having a good Thursday. Okay, so in the comment section here, you can get notified when we do go live by joining the Facebook broadcast channel. So you can click on that link at any time. It doesn't work for everybody because it's a beta thing, in other words. So it's a big club and you ain't in it, kind of a deal. Don't take offense because Facebook doesn't treat everybody equally. So if you can't get access to it and use some weird error, that's the reason for that. Meanwhile, thanks again for you guys on Rumble tuning in, and on YouTube as well, and also on Twitter. So hopefully all that stuff's working out here for you. I know you guys got a little early taste, like, hey, where'd you go? But yeah, we're back. Okay, so that's all said and done. I got everything loaded. So let's take a look at what is happening out there currently. So we got a few clouds out there. It's a nice day. It's 79 degrees across my area here in my backyard. If we do look at temperatures elsewhere across the state with some partly cloudy skies, we do have some 70s, some 60s though across far northeastern Oklahoma. They got a lot of rainfall last night here in that area. Matter of fact, I didn't do this live, but let me go ahead and do it real quick, or didn't set this up, I should say. So let me do this live. There we go. Let's go 24-hour rainfall. And so there you go. It was really weird. We had this band right here, just south side of Tulsa, Broken Arrow, etc., due east, and radar estimates in here were actually up to 4 inches of rainfall. So the Mesonet didn't detect all that here, but looking at some of the rainfall estimates, it was some pretty decent deluges around this region. The model did hint at that, but it didn't really know where to put it. It's not usually that good at putting them in the exact position of where you're going to get those type of flash flooding type rains. All right, here's a look at the surface parameters here, the surface map, and this is kind of what's left of the cold front boundary in this area with the rain and the clouds in that area. Otherwise, we're all warming up and getting back into the sun and the warmer weather. The upper level low that we're talking about, the next storm system, is right here. It's coming in off Nevada. So this is spiraling around, heading in toward Colorado later on today. Out ahead of it is a subtropical jet stream. That's where you have that moisture coming in. You can get little disturbances that ride along that feature. And that can create some cloud cover and sometimes some thunderstorms. Look at these got blew up last night and early this morning. So here's a look at the new update from the Storm Prediction Center. So if you'll notice, they have an enhanced ring up here in Kansas, near the Nebraska border, and then you have this new enhanced region down here to the south and west. Let me see here. Rumble. Guys on Rumble say you don't see a picture. Weird. I'm not sure why. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. It seems okay on my end. Maybe try refreshing your browser. See if that helps, or exit and come back in. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Like I said, there's a little issue I had logging in, so maybe there's some cascading problems. But anyway, so back here into southwestern, you can check it on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook in the meantime, if that doesn't work for you. And then meanwhile, here, southwest Oklahoma into northwestern Texas is a new enhanced area. We talked about this last night, so they removed this spot here across the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, and western Oklahoma based off that new data. So the Weather Service here, the zoomed in version of that, Here is your enhanced region from central Oklahoma down south, southwest to out to Wichita Falls for up to baseball size hail. Winds up around 80 miles per hour. Tornado potential is low. Keep in mind this is for overnight tonight, not for today, because the cap is going to hold. So tornado potential basically is low everywhere in the green shading. Now, honestly, if you really want to get particular, I would kind of fine tune this to maybe something like this. All right, so this is where I would put the tornado potential. The only way this is going to verify is if we do get a thunderstorm out here in the panhandle of Texas and it does graze the northwestern part of the state. Otherwise, it goes into the panhandle and into Kansas is where the latest data is looking, if it even happens at all. So there would be a break. In other words, there'd be nothing at all as a possibility in between. But regardless, low potential everywhere for this event today. Severe weather outlook also for Tulsa. Again, they do expect storms to weaken a little bit by the morning hours. But on Friday, it kind of picks it back up. So from Friday morning, and then maybe a repeat in the afternoon. But anyway, this whole area still underneath for a potential, put that back on here, for big hail up to tennis ball size, winds excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour, and they have a limited tornado potential. In other words, not a zero, but just a low end. So both this is low end. Now, remember, if you may have been hearing from days on end that Thursday was going to be a big day, tornadoes, etc., and we finally get to that big day, and the Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center now says low, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind always. You cannot do that kind of stuff several days out. That's why I like the 48-hour window. If you really want accuracy, that's where it comes. Beyond that, it's hyperbole. So anyway, let's go on into Saturday. We'll see what Saturday holds. Here's again eastern Oklahoma. All the threats, potential tornado, hail, and wind, and we can get to that a little bit later. Meanwhile, here in the, let me see, where is it? Oklahoma City area, same thing, underneath an enhanced area from the Storm Prediction Center. But a lot can happen that can really change the outlook. It's still as clear as mud, just so you know. Okay, let's go to the AI algorithm for today, which kind of favors Kansas and a little bit of the Texas, Oklahoma panhandle, a little sliver there, and it's backed off continuously in this area. And this is just one AI model they've been playing with for the last couple years. If we look at another one, it also favors this area here of Kansas, which I can agree with. And then it has this little area here for overnight stuff, which ironically, if you look at this, it's kind of jives what I was telling you about for what I think is a low tornado threat. So I like this. This actually goes with the AT model. The AT model and this AI model agree. So it's a low probability, but I do expect to see a couple of tornadoes overnight here in Oklahoma as a result. And we'll get to that here in a second. But at least they should be on the weaker side, not the stronger side. Analogs favor this afternoon if you compare similar storm systems out across the panhandle. But again, it does not necessarily mean that that is actually what's going to happen. It's just if they were to compare similar systems, that is where the action was, and they put a probability on it, and it's low, 5 to 10%. If we zip that onto Friday, it shifts that whole area to the east a little bit and to the north, still in the low probability end. And then on Saturday, kind of just keeps it across the state into Kansas as well, but also a low probability end as far as comparing similar setups. Okay, so our particular setup, the upper level low by this afternoon, is going to be right here. So honestly, in the newest data today, that storm system looks like it's coming a little bit faster than before. And so it does have the position now a little different than it did in last night's data. And so that's why I'm saying until that system is sampled in our balloon network off the coast, which it wasn't fully last night, there's still a little room to manage things in different directions. If you see here, the low is really kind of centered here. Earlier in the data, it was going to be centered here. That's a big difference. So it comes in a little quicker. However, most of the bulk of the energy, because of the cap and the strength and the storms, etc., still favor southern Nebraska, Kansas. As you can see here, kind of an indication. This is a convective feedback output here in the vorticity map at 500 millibars. Otherwise, we do expect those nice southwesterly broad flow aloft, which keeps our wind shear decent for storm generation. I'm not going to bore you with some of the other things because basically I'm time limited here. So let's take a look here at the dryline position for this afternoon. Should be west of Amarillo. So the newest data continues to shove this guy further to the west. And just so you know, the cap strength that was supposed to be projected out there is still there. If you look right here, there's a nice little cap strength here. So it's still not guaranteed that storms will even fire on the dry line, just because there's a pretty strong cap in place across the panhandle. And the convergence, it's okay, it's decent, so it might do it. There are some indication that the cap may break at least a couple of thunderstorms out here in the west, central, northern parts of the panhandle region. Matter of fact, I'm going to zoom into that here in a minute. I want to show you the cape and instability. over a large area. Cape values of around 2,000 or 3,000. It just means that we're priming the atmosphere with instability is really all that means, and we have some decent shear. So now these, where you see these little triangle looks to the wind barbs, that just means decent shear. Wherever you see a nice big triangle, that just means a lot of turning with height, which is what you want if you want supercell storms that can produce tornadoes. So you have to have the shear in place, and you have to have the instability in place. Again, the cap is a limiting factor. If you look at the significant tornado parameter right here, where things are off the charts, where things can get a little hairy or hectic, again, it favors out here in the Panhandle region, where it, in this particular spot that I happen to pick, which is usually the sweet spot that storm spotters love to pick and post, which is the most favorable spot, and then you can see the data in that, and it does indicate a very, very weak cap in that area along and near the dry line, with plenty of parameters to indicate you could have some damaging winds, very large hail, up to, grapefruit size in some cases, and even a significant tornado should a storm form here on the bulge of this little dry line. So that would be one particular spot to look for if you are out chasing today. Let me put this into motion so we can show you how that moves east a little bit during the evening hours. So again, this is for the afternoon. Now let's go into the evening hours. It does, okay, so you can see a little bit here in central Oklahoma to work with as the new storms come in. Now, it's eroded right here because on this particular model, it erases it once you get storms that form. So you can envision this still filled right here, but just not quite as strong as it is up in Kansas. So a little weaker across our area for ingredients for tornadoes. Otherwise, it does diminish toward daybreak. See, that's just barely anything left. So otherwise, those storms should diminish over time, which is good news, of course. All right, let's take a look here at the cap strength. Again, high today. All these brighter colors indicate a very strong cap. So here in Oklahoma City, for example, if I were to click on this, here's our little cap strength right here. It's in the minus hundreds to minus 200s, minus 300s, depending where you try to lift the parcel of air, meaning it's impossible to get severe storms rooted today. It's just not going to happen. So again, you have to go for the cap as the weakest, which isn't even going to be until you're way out here near the dry line like we talked about before. And the cap is supposed to get weaker overnight tonight, and that's what's going to allow those thunderstorms to maybe give it a run at trying to get rooted. It's still a big $1 million question. So let's see what this high-resolution model state for today, for this afternoon. That stuff north and east of us is gone. Here's those new storms that try to get going out here in the Panhandle, Texas and Oklahoma, and into Kansas. Those move off into Kansas. So again, if you live out in western Kansas, you'll expect a couple of tornadic thunderstorms today. And then here's that other little area trying to get going here just around the Amarillo region. It doesn't really do much because, again, the cap holds. You can have all the greatest instability and all the best ingredients in the world, but if the cap holds, then nothing happens out of that. So it's a big, what we call a conditional situation. All right, so let's go on in later into the evenings. There's those new storms that blow up as the front and dry lines start to move east, as the upper level storm system moves east. So by midnight, it's already into southwestern Oklahoma. They're into western Texas. And overnight, you'll see how this expands northward. And I'll do a zoom in of this here in a minute. I want to show you the big picture from southern Kansas through north Texas into the daybreak hours. So if you get an early start out on the roadways, you're running to the storms. If you wait, they'll pass by before drive time. Otherwise, Tulsa, here in Oklahoma City rather, but in Tulsa and Dallas, you guys are definitely getting some rain as what's left of it moves through your area. There's more additional storms throughout the morning for north Texas and northeastern Texas. And then for the afternoon, things calm down until they try to redevelop again. So we talked about earlier the dry line, which by this point in time, Friday afternoon, I told you the models would pretty much be a little bit too far to the east. Originally they were like this, and I was like, nah, they're usually wrong on that. Well, they're already backstepping now to I-35 corridor, and you can see it is trying to produce some thunderstorms here all the way down to north Texas. But the instability is in question because of all this morning stuff. The clouds, the cooler temperatures should offset that ability. So it's going to be one of those fine lines. And we're going to have to deal with that tomorrow. We'll see how the atmosphere recovers. But meanwhile, in the model data, it is hinting that storms will at least give it a try here along the I-35 corridor points east. Whether or not they hold together and for how long, etc., we'll have to wait and see. But they would have the threat for hail, wind, and potential tornado. All right, so after that, we go into Saturday. So there is still indication we'll have some morning storms that come through here from another wave, northwest Texas to southwest Oklahoma, moving through the state, the middle of the state by lunchtime. And there are some indications that they'll probably have some hail and wind with them. The wind shear isn't perfect for tornadogenesis. The storms will rotate for sure. There's plenty of shear for that, but it's a little too linear for me to get tornadoes out of that for the first part of that event. So we'll see what happens. It's still early in the day. But then regardless, if we don't blow up too much storms around the area, the models do try to develop another round by late afternoon and evening up here in Kansas and far northwest Oklahoma. But other than that, you can see they didn't do a whole lot across Oklahoma. So there's still a lot to work out with on the details on Saturday. Even though the ingredients are there, like I said before, it doesn't mean anything if you can't take advantage of it. Here's a look at the high-res WRF model. It does pop that little storm out here near Amarillo for a little supercell, maybe a little tornado with it. Also here in southwestern Kansas for this afternoon and evening. There's those additional storms in Kansas, again for potential tornadoes up there. And then here's that new cluster coming in. This is something new I've seen in some of the data, and that is to stabilize the northern part of the state and only keep the strongest stuff from basically Oklahoma City southward. Now this is a brand new trend, and I'm leery to trust it, so I'm not going to go with it yet, but I just want to let you know that is there. But meanwhile, you do see these little helicity tracks, again, for large hail, damaging wind, and potential tornado within this cluster as it moves in overnight. And then there's a little hint of some stuff here for Friday afternoon, even in this model. It does have, looks like a couple of supercell indications, maybe one down here and here, but again, it's not going to know the exact position this far out. It just kind of gives you an idea of what to look for. And then on Saturday, it also favors that little cluster of storms, and it has some helicity tracks for wind and hail. Again, I think it's too early for a tornado if these were to happen, but we'll play it by ear and we'll get closer to it. We'll look at that stuff in more detail. Okay, so here is the close-up view of Oklahoma. Like I said, those storms out here in the Panhandle should fall apart. But for a while in the afternoon hours, again, they pose a threat of all three hazards. Then here's that Elk City down southward to Altus, 1 o'clock in the morning. That moves eastward. So it has what we call a little bit of a squall line look to it, which is a solid line of storms. However, it's a little broken still. So the fact that it's a little broken tells me it's still battling the cap or the inversion layer, number one. It does have helicity tracks like this, which also tells me you have a couple of issues here. You can have some damaging pockets of wind, which is typical in a squall line. You can also have some hail, which is typical in a squall line. And if you can get an embedded supercell, you might get a rotation of a thunderstorm that produces a tornado out of that as well. Outside of that isolated remote event, you also have the leading edge of a squall line, where it's the strongest, to get what they call QLCS tornadoes that could develop. Very brief, very short, very weak usually. But regardless, I do expect a couple of tornadoes from either one of those development processes during the late night over morning hours. So again, backing this up, this is 4 o'clock in the morning going through here in Oklahoma City. Now you have to give or take about an hour. You know, the models won't be perfect, but they give you the ballpark as to when they will arrive and move out. So there's 5 and 6 o'clock moving through Tulsa. Looks like it's much weaker by that point in time. On into southeast Oklahoma, the trend continues to weaken by 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And then like we said on the afternoon for Friday, you see how these thunderstorms try to bubble up right here, kind of just west of I-35. And then we'll see at 4 and 5 o'clock, they're struggling to keep going. And then some of them do. Looks like they try to get to Tulsa. There's a 2-hour window there where they're giving it their all, and they move up here into northeastern Oklahoma and Kansas. So we'll have to, again, wait and see if that looks like that's going to materialize. If so, we'll have a threat for storms there with hail, wind, and a potential tornado. Speaking of wind, we'll look at this just to show you. Last night, the models did really good at showing some pockets up to around 70 and 80 miles per hour. Even today, they're right up around 80. Now, they won't know the exact placement, so the take-home is not the placement. The take-home is along the line, just to let you know that line is going to be pretty stout. Now, this particular model favors the northern parts of the state for stronger winds than the southern part. Again, I wouldn't put too much into that, only to know that this is along the entire line, where you can have these little spots of wind that are up around 80 miles per hour, and of course that can do as much damage as a small tornado. It's called straight line wind damage. So you may not get a tornado, but yet you might get some stuff blown around or broken just because of the winds. Okay, so that takes care of that one, and then let's see, we're going to zip on past that because we're going to wrap this up. So dryline position, I'll back this up here for Friday afternoon. Still, kind of, it's a mishmash. So true dryline is probably going to be right around here with, sometimes you can get another little we'll call it a prefrontal, or it's another trough axis at the surface that can happen sometimes out ahead of a feature, just because the overall pattern that reduces convergence. But regardless, this would be the most favored area to get thunderstorms to try to develop, where you have the higher dew point values, and there's really not any convergence on this. You'd really have to have basically just the cap eroding at this point, because you see the winds here are still kind of out of the southwest, and over here they're out of the south. So you really don't have a good southeast and southwest component. You know, in other words, it's not going like this and not going like this to really break the dry line. So we'll have to have, a very weak cap for that to occur. Regardless, that's the position of that, and we'll watch for Friday. And then on Saturday, that retreats and then sets back up for Saturday afternoon. So by afternoon hours, depending on how things go during the day. The dry line is now set up right here across the western third of Oklahoma, so that would be your focus for any additional thunderstorms should the atmosphere still be unstable. If I were to take a look at a forecast sounding at that point in time, this particular model seems to indicate that that would be the case. Let's see, if I go here, there's a little bit of a weak cap initially to overcome. Otherwise, if it's a weak cap and it holds, then it's a weak cap and it holds. If it doesn't hold, well, then you get some storms, the way it goes. Okay, so rainfall amounts. Let me just zip to this one here. Actually, let's go here. So I want to show you just the look that flash flooding may be something you have to deal with. So I'm going to go through the slew of the models just to kind of show you what the take home is. And that's 1, 2, 3 inches of rainfall, spots of 4, maybe even 5. And kind of focus your eyes on where the heaviest is, because again, they won't be perfect. It's a ballpark figure. But here's the European broken down. There's some spots here up around 8 inches. It's been doing this for the last couple of days. It's even got one now here in the metro on the east side at 6 inches. That wasn't before there before, so it's just constantly moving these little blobs around. The American model, kind of same idea. There's your signal, 3, 4, maybe 5 inches of rainfall. Icon model, same idea. So when you start to get a lot of agreements, right, you start to go, okay, well, I guess we're going to get a lot of rainfall. And you do get the flash flooding risk as a result of that. Here's, let's see, the UK Met, which is going nuts. 9 inches of rain on the south side of Oklahoma City to the east side, also up around the Tulsa area. Again, this would cause a lot of flash flooding. This is, again, through our next 3 waves of storms. It's not all in one. Usually get them like in, 2, if this be the case, you need like 2 inches at a time or something like that. It kind of depends on how things evolve. And then anyway, at the blend of the models, in other words, the conservative amount still looks a lot of rain. 1, 2, 3 inches of rainfall over a widespread area, about over 2/3 of the state. That's a really good rain over a short period of time, just a couple of days. So as far as timing goes, and you guys are asking $1 million questions, especially for the weekend, let's take a look at the European here real quick. Let me get you through tonight. There's that little stuff for tonight. Like you see, even the European kind of favors the southern half of the state versus the northern half, probably because some other storms in here that kind of kept things a bit more stable. But that kind of lights back up to that old funnel boundary. Let's see. Let's go to Friday afternoon. Okay, that doesn't have any storms at all. Let's go to Saturday. In the morning hours, there's that new wave of storms that comes in up to I-35 corridor. It's been keeping this trend solid for the last 3 days, I think it is. So it is not changing at all. We'll see what the high resolution models do with it. But it's suggesting that we'll have midday storms in here, which will be, like I said, probably severe, but on the lower end, just because they're coming in not during the peak of daytime heating. And not with the best shear, but regardless, about 4 o'clock, that heavier line moves off to the east. And with the dry line is trying to redevelop some new stuff out here north and west. It looks like they don't really do much, so they may hang on and come out in this area, but otherwise, not a lot of activity in the dry line, probably because this morning stuff just stabilized things so much. But as you go into the low-level jet in the evening hours, if the cap were to weaken or the system comes in overnight and starts to push things east with the front, again, kind of like what's going to happen tonight, same kind of repeat performance. Then it's going to try to blow up some more thunderstorms here on the midnight hour, and that's what that does here across the eastern half of the state. So now you can kind of get the picture as to why there's so much rain, because you kind of keep getting these rounds after rounds after rounds that move through. So that'll be moving through. There's 4 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock on Sunday, across the eastern third of the state, still wet, still rainy, up to about, looks like Sunday afternoon, and then that's all said and done. It's over with. Finally, here's your temperatures here for today, into the 80s, 70s otherwise. So kind of status quo, a little warmer on some days, a little cooler on the others. Nothing crazy, overnight lows, all that kind of stuff. So that is it. I'm exhausted, can barely breathe. I need a drink of water. But I want to give you everything there was to know about this event. That way you're well informed. And that way you've got all the information you need. So my advice to you is keep a No Weather Radio handy for tonight. Use my weather app. It's free. Apple, Google Play. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It'll predict tornadoes before they actually occur, giving you more time to seek shelter. Know what a game plan is. Where you or the kids going to go. Should you get the hot sirens, sounding in the middle of the night that wakes everybody up? Is everybody's clothes nearby or your shoes nearby? Do you have your stuff that you need to put in the closet or bathroom, wherever it is that you're going? Just make all those mental preparations. That way you're ready, because at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you will not be awake. You're going to have to act really fast. So it's helpful if you already have that stuff in place and everybody kind of knows. Remember, the threat is very low, but it's not zero, because I do expect a couple of tornadoes overnight tonight. I do expect them to be on the weaker side, just because of some of the ingredients that they have to work with at that point in time. And then let's see. And then we'll just take the next few days, each day, because as you saw, there's a lot of chaos going on. And to try to resolve all that and then be completely accurate for the next 3 days, depending on what happens today and what happens yesterday, is very difficult. So sometimes in that case, it's like a daily check-in to see what's changed. But at least you have the big picture, the general idea, the consensus, the timing, working out, and then what threats there are, and that kind of deal. So I think that's everything I got here for you. Thanks again for watching, for sharing the video. Hope you enjoy the rest of your lunch and your day today. I'll do the live here tonight around 9:30. We'll check on see how things are going. I don't expect much changes from the data here today. We've got everything that we need from the balloon sounding from the storm system. So it's just little minor tweaks at this point, and that's really about it. All right, guys. Thanks. Sorry for the technical difficulty at the beginning. Sometimes that happens. We'll get it worked out here on my end, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.